Welcome to the SOB radio show, where we have fun, interesting guests, and hot topics. Each week, we offer insights into music, fashion, health, fitness, and humor. Do you have the perfect guest for us to interview? I want to know. Drop me a line on our Facebook page at Spunky Old Broad 1 or reach out to me on our website at spunkyoldbroad.com. And now, back to the show. Hi, everyone. This is Gayle Carson, and we have a very interesting guest today. Her name is Dot Campbell. She is the author of the exceptional book, You're Not the Boss of Me. Take control of your subconscious mind. This book demystifies the subconscious mind process and identifies methods that brought success to her students and clients physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. She dedicated over 30 years creating and teaching easy to learn techniques to use the subconscious mind's positive benefits. Her background as a corporate executive in several industries, along with her master's in education and doctorate in metaphysics, provides a wealth of business and personal knowledge and experience that she joyfully passes on to others. Her unusual combination of logical life experience and many certifications in energy work, such as Reiki, hypnosis, dowsing, intuitive coaching, and more, gives her the ability to identify the healing and learning processes appropriate for each individual to produce the most personal and positive outcome. She believes we all have the power to create a life of balance, love, and peace. We just have to learn how to access that power. She founded the Self Power Center to fulfill her passion and purpose, to gently guide each individual to easily connect to that power within. Welcome to the show, Dot.
Thank you so much, Gail. I'm so pleased to be on your program. You're the only woman I know in my age bracket that is still shining such a bright light on the world, and I thank you for that.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, it's amazing what you can do when you really have a life purpose and when you really put all of your abilities together. And what you have that I don't have is this wonderful spiritual side that enhances what you do, and also, that you are able to bring out all of this in the people that you work with. Because um, I certainly have a softer side, but I'm very much more logical and analytical in what I do, even though that's not my tendency. But I know that when I see something that I want, I go after it. And, I won't say that there's a lot of spiritual thought behind all of that. So, so let's talk about what you were doing when you turned 50.
Okay, when I turned 50, I was actually just had gotten my master's in education. I
Okay,
was,
so there's a thought right there, listeners. She was 50 years old when she got her master's. I was, let's see, I can't remember, but I think I was in my early 40s when I went back and got my doctorate. So don't think because you're not 18 or 20 or 30 that you have to stop your learning. Sorry, Dot, but I had to make a point of
yeah,
that, so go ahead.
I hear you totally. One of my preachings is that age is just a number. You
And
know,
it really
what
is.
what you accomplish in your life has to do with your mindset, not about the number of years you've been on this planet. That was, at 50, that was one of my goals to get that done. And I did because in fourth grade, I had been labeled as slow. So from that point on, it was kind of a challenge to me to figure out ways to get rid of that label. So by the time I was 50, again, I got my master's. I was an officer in a financial institution, and I began creating women's classes that I taught at the colleges, and I spoke to a lot of women's groups throughout New England and was teaching in wellness centers. So,
So let me ask you something. They labeled you as slow. Now,
yeah.
do you think that had a positive or do you think that had a negative impact on you?
Well, according to my father, I was too stubborn to accept it.
Well, that was good.
Yes, so it was just who I was. Um, And I think it kind of pushed me to do things. Normally, it would have held me back, but I was always interested in solving problems. Like I loved books that you had to solve problems in. You know, the Hardy Boys, the Sherlock Holmes. I love all of those. So to me, it was a challenge. It was a Everybody around me, all my other relatives, my cousins, were very bright and I wasn't. And I couldn't figure out why. We were growing up in the same environment. We were the same nationality. I mean, so to me, I had to solve that mystery. So I found ways to teach myself. So by the time I got into like fifth or sixth grade, I was making straight A's. And I didn't know how I was doing it. I just knew I was doing it. So I just kept pushing through and doing what I was doing, and then started reading a lot of books about changing your thought processes. And as a child, all I could see that was a difference between me and my female cousins was that they thought differently than I did, that they thought better of themselves, that they really, thought they were hot tickets, and I was this little kid that couldn't alternate feet sometimes. So I think that's what pushed me ahead. I just kept looking at trying to figure out the mystery of why I was different than they were.
That's really interesting, because for a couple of different reasons. Number one, um, you had this thought process in you all along, or you wouldn't have been able to do it. You observed there was something different about you. You were going to figure out what it was, and you saw behavior that you thought was better than what you were doing, so you modeled that. But I'm just wondering, what on earth do you think the reason was that you were labeled slow?
Well, the mystery came unvolved when I turned 42 and I had resigned from a company and they wouldn't let me resign. So they sent me to an aptitude center and put me through a bunch of tests. And I found I was dyslexic.
Wow. Yeah,
But
which wasn't even talked about
no,
then.
no, that they didn't know what that was when I was a child. It was no. So at the time, the psychologist that was testing me said, "I don't know how you got where you're at today with this learning disability," because by that time I had my degrees, I had my doctorate, and my master's, and was pretty high up in a company where women weren't being moved that high. And he said, "I don't know how you did it," and I said, "Well, it's a part of my processing." So that's when I began to then teach other people how to do it, because I thought, I became the little engine that could, so everybody else can do it too. I just found that the more women that asked me how I was reaching high positions, I was giving them the same answers. So
Interesting. Yeah. Wow.
then that's when I put my women's classes together so that women could begin to move forward, and not even on a personal level and a professional level, to understand how that thought process is working and how some of our programming, even from childhood, holds us back or pushes us forward.
Isn't it interesting? Henry Winkler is dyslexic, and he went to the same college I did, and as you know, became very well known as the Fonz, and then all these other things now but he is one of the nicest people you would ever want to meet.
Oh.
But what is he doing now? I mean, besides acting, he's written all these children's books, and I think he's written 17 or 18 of them, and this is from somebody who was dyslexic. So it just shows you what can be done if you've got the determination. So, what became your future goals when you turned 50?
Well, because I saw the need for what I was doing and passing on to other women, I decided I needed to start some sort of a center where I could reach more people to pass on this information. Um, that was one of my biggest goals. And I continue to learn and teach. I love learning things. And then I love to pass them on to other people. So that's kind of what my whole goal was. I wanted to see more people end up creating their life for themselves and using their subconscious mind to create something good instead of the fear and the lack that we usually get programmed into our subconscious mind.
So, what have you accomplished from the age of 50 until now, which I'm not sure how old you are, but uh,
Well,
from
it's interesting because I did establish the Self Power Center so that I could do my teaching, and I even had other teachers come in and do things. And I left corporate and created my own consulting company. I became a certified hypnotherapist and an instructor. I built a small recording studio in my basement so that I could record my scripts and make CDs. At that time, it was CDs, tapes and CDs, not MP3s. And also help produce recordings for my hypnosis and healing associates who, wanted to pass on their information. I became a Reiki master and intuitive dowser, got my doctorate in metaphysics, and took people for 12 years. I took people on spiritual retreats to Sedona, Arizona, which I was a goal that I didn't even see coming. But it brought me such joy for 12 years to take people there and help them onto their spiritual path. And then I published my book at 79.
Well, there you go. You don't want to just sit still, do you, Dot? I mean, that is so fabulous because um, it just shows you, I mean, what can be done if you put your mind to it. And we all go back to that mindset again. We talk about it so many times on the show. And it's so important for you to say, okay, do I want to just sit back and just be where I am doing what I do? Or do I want to keep learning and going? And just like Dot, you all know that I'm always attending seminars and listening to webinars and reading books, going to conferences. And people think I'm crazy because they say, why don't you know it yet? And I always say, if I don't know it, I better hang it up because I'm not going to be any good to anybody.
No, you
So,
don't know what you don't know.
exactly. So, was there ever a time, other than, that fourth grade incident, when you doubted your abilities? And if so, um, what did you do to overcome those doubts?
Okay, first of all, I don't think there's a human on the planet that doesn't, at some point in time, question their abilities and what they're doing with their lives. And at the times that I found myself like that, what I did was I would look at what have I already accomplished? Where am I now? Who am I right now? Um, and as soon as I did that and looked at everything around me that I had created, it brought me right back into my accepting my abilities. So many times we look at what's lacking in our lives instead of what we have. I keep telling my students and clients that when you start feeling that way, like, I'm not going anywhere, I'm not doing anything, you get a midlife crisis thing going on, I would say, just stop and look around. Look at what you already have and what you've accomplished. Instead of looking at what you think is lacking, look at the gifts and blessings you already have. And then that kind of pulls you right back into, okay, you know, I can move forward. It's a little bit of a challenge, but I can do it.
So how have you blended the spiritual side, the Reiki and the hypnosis and all of that uh, with your consulting business?
Well, that kind of all just came together when I started teaching the women's classes and I realized I needed something more. I became the hypnotist. And while I was doing hypnosis, I was introduced to Reiki. So I found they just kind of all blended together so that the spiritual part is kind of the softer part of the logic. And, I teach people a lot about getting in touch with their intuition. So that's kind of the spiritual part. But if you're in touch with your intuition, you can get any answer you need for your life on any level. So I tell people, especially my nurses, to look at their intuition first and then look at the logic. And then it kind of blends together. In fact, the whole subconscious process, when you're meditating, or you're doing spiritual work, you're not in your conscious mind. You're in your subconscious mind. Meditation takes you to your subconscious mind. You could not meditate in your conscious mind. That most people struggle with meditation because of all the conscious thoughts that come in.
That's me, Cheryl. That is me.
What?
Uh, I should say, Dot. I was just thinking. I closed my eyes and I was going back to a different interview, but I can tell you that is me. I have so many conscious thoughts when I close my eyes or when I try to meditate. Um, all these thoughts are going through my mind. I don't know if I've ever gotten into my subconscious mind. Maybe in my dreams, and I don't realize it. And I have been dreaming a lot lately, but
Yeah.
it's really interesting. So that brings me to you've got all these different people in your class. You've got, every kind of person you could possibly imagine. Is everyone able to process this? Does everyone kind of graduate as success, or, how does that happen?
Uh, Well, what happens is, again, basically everything I start with, I found I was starting with the subconscious mind process. Because whether we're going on a spiritual path, whether we're going on a professional path, a personal path, I see myself as just a guiding light. I'm shining a light so that you can see the next steps on your path. So I found that the first thing I introduce to everyone is the subconscious mind process. Because no matter what you're going to do in this life, your subconscious mind has a big hunk of it. That processing is done more than in your conscious mind. And a lot of us have things that happened in our childhood that are in our subconscious mind that are holding us back that we don't even recognize. We don't even know it's there. So, by training people in the subconscious mind process and being able to take control of that process, there isn't anything you can't accomplish on any level: healing, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. It's all there. That's where the processing begins. The work all begins in your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind will allow you to meditate, because once you learn to get into your subconscious mind, then your conscious mind kind of shuts up.
You know, that is so interesting to listen to you say this, because there are things. First of all, I think I was very fortunate because I was raised in a very healthy, happy home with two parents who were very loving to each other and to me. Yet I was very strict. I mean, I had rules, I had discipline, I had things that I had to do, but I can't think of too many things that held me back. I mean, there are certainly certain things that happen, but and yet in addressing a lot of women's audiences, I'm amazed at people who are still under the control of especially their mothers. And the mother's been gone 20 years, 30 years.
Right.
So, what you're doing is so, so important. So, because of all the things that you've done and accomplished, what would you say you're most proud of? What are the things you're most proud of that you've done?
Well, I have to say the first thing is the ability to assist others. Okay, I'm so proud of all my students and clients over the years that have just done amazing, amazing things with their lives. And they always say, well, I did it. I just taught them the tools and techniques to do it. They did the work. I can't get into your subconscious mind and change anything. You're the only one that's in control of your subconscious mind. It's what you accept or reject into your subconscious mind that creates who you are. So to me, I just love being able to give people the tools and techniques so that they can create the positive lives that they really deserve and that they really want in their lives. Okay. Teaching them how to acknowledge and trust their intuition, getting into that subconscious mind process to actually get the things that they want in their life and to accept how unique they are. Most of us are comparing ourselves to everybody else instead of looking at the unique part of us that's us, and then using that uniqueness to become who we want to become. That's the part that makes me most excited. I mean, just anytime I get a new client or a new student, I just get so excited. to let them see and have them accept the fact of how their subconscious mind processes. Most people, their first time through, will look at me and go, how come nobody told me about this? It's like this big secret, you know. I said, it's not, it's there. The subconscious mind, everybody knows it exists, but nobody ever talks about it. It's this like secret in the closet, you know, and it's not. I'm trying to get it out of the closet and get everyone to understand how to take control of that process, because once you know how to control that process, it's amazing what you can do. Right now, most of the time, our subconscious mind is creating fear and lack in our process. And sometimes we don't even know where that comes from. And again, it can come from childhood, it can come from environment. It's amazing what your subconscious mind holds on to, because it makes no judgment call. It doesn't accept what's fantasy and reality. It only pays attention to what you tell it. So think about that. That's something that listens to everything you say and believes you, never questions it. So it
Wow.
begins the processing as though it was all truth.
That is just amazing. That is just amazing. And it's true. I mean, you can be doing something and all of a sudden something pops into your mind and say, well, are you crazy? Why are you doing this? Or these are all the things that could go wrong. Or is that your subconscious or is that your conscious mind?
Well, the judgment part is your conscious mind. Your subconscious mind never judges you. It just believes
Ah,
everything you tell it. So
wow.
you have
That,
to program it that you're perfect.
yeah. Oh boy. That's not an easy thing to do though, Dot, is
Well,
it?
well, you know what? It's easy. The techniques and methods that I teach people are very easy. They're in the book. They're very easy. It's a matter of sticking with them and being repetitious. You didn't learn your ABCs or your multiplication tables in one day. Your subconscious mind has been programming on its own forever. Now you're going to take it over and you're going to reprogram it to positive. It's going to take repetition to do it. It's like anything else. People want to learn how to play golf well, they're going to go for the training and they're going to keep swinging and swinging and swinging until they get it where they need to be. But when it comes to your subconscious mind, you don't. You let it go on autopilot and it
What
just does
That's a
wonderful.
great example. The golf is a great example because I'm always hysterical how not pro golfers but regular people who golf are always getting a new club or taking new lessons or they're I mean I watch you know because you know I travel a lot.
Yeah,
uh, I watch as these people bring their golf clubs on these vacations
right,
and or even on a business trip they'll tack on an extra day or sometimes part of their meeting is a golf outing. So they
right.
bring their own clubs, and I'm thinking, who on earth would bring that heavy bag with them every time? And when I say to them, why don't you just rent clubs? Oh, no, I can't play without my own clubs. And I'm always, as a non golfer, I
Yeah.
can say this. I say, well, it seems just a whole lot easier. Oh, no. So it's interesting that you use golf as an example because I'm always questioning that kind of thing. So the fact is that it takes work to program your subconscious mind so that it works.
Right, right. It's not so much work, it's repetition. You know, my systems are easy to do. It's just doing them, you know, to be sure that you do them every day. And if it's something you want to learn how to do, unfortunately, when it comes to our mind process or our thought process, we don't spend as much time improving that as we do with golf or tennis or baking or cooking or whatever. We will spend the time and the energy and the money it takes to see something uh, physical happening, you know, something material happening, like you got a better score or something. But when it comes to that mind process, we kind of just leave it there and say, oh, it'll work the next time.
Interesting, very interesting. Well, you know, we're coming down to our 2 minute break, and when we come back, I'm going to ask you about this book of yours because I'm sure people are going to want to get it so they can understand how to do this process. But it's just amazing to me, Dot, that you're able to do all of this, and not only that, but you can tell by your voice. You've got energy, you've got excitement, you've got interest. You there are so many more things I know that Dot wants to do, and it just is amazing to me that because I think I remember when we were at the New Media Summit, which is where you and I met.
Right.
You were convinced you were the oldest one in the room, and I said, "Oh no, I am." And you told me how old you were, and I said, "No, I got your beat." And it's interesting because both of us are the kind that just never say die, never
No,
give up,
no.
and that's what keeps everything going and active and a part of who you are.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. We're those Energizer bunnies. We're never going to stop.
That's right, and that's a funny thing. When I was doing my corporate work, I mean, doing a lot of consulting and speaking in the corporate arena, they used to call me the corporate energizer because I was like that little bunny that just kept on going all the time. But anyway, hold on, folks. We're coming back with part two with Dot Campbell, and we'll be back to you shortly.